All right, welcome back. It's time for that conversation that we want to look at reimagining the workforce and the investment that is being done towards that direction. And my guest this afternoon has done quite it all, from the emergency room to the banking halls and now in that tech space. Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji is the CEO and co-founder of Seamless HR. And we just want to look at the future of the workforce. Dr. welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right,
good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. So the first things first, we just want to understand, when you look at blue-collar work productivity, we know that it has been diminishing. Maybe help us understand what are some of the reasons behind that?
So Africa is a production hub for the world. There's a lot of production that comes out from Africa, and the role of blue-collar workers on the continent can't be underestimated. From sectors from manufacturing to agriculture, the real work that holds society up is the sweat and labor of blue-collar workers in the continent. And unfortunately, that's the element of the economy that also doesn't get enough for the labor that it put in. And in recent times, with the economies around the world suffering from different upheavals, from the pandemic to different crises around the world, the impact of those crises would usually affect people who are at the base of the pyramid, more than people who have the cushioning of extra pay at the top of the pyramid. So unfortunately, the most hardworking people are bearing the brunt the most for the challenges the economy is facing across the continent. So
the argument for a very long time has been those at the bottom of the pyramid do the most for the least amount of pay, yet those at the top of the pyramid do the least for the most amount of pay. Why such discrepancies?
It's unfortunate that that's the way our world is designed, and the work we all have to do is to improve the world, is to increase equality, is to make sure that people earn well for the sweat and labor they put in and the contributions they make to the world. And that's part of the work that we're doing, and that's part of the things that we want to talk to you about today.
All right, so Dr. when we talk about reimagining the workforce, one of the things that, of course, we want to know is when you look at the labor market, particularly in Africa, of course, informal labor is the highest compared to formal employment. True. So what then needs to happen for us to bridge this gap and make sure that maybe it's a 50-50 difference? Yes,
essentially. For instance, here in Kenya, there's about 18 million people in the labor force, and a staggering 80% of that is people in the informal sector, people who would be considered blue-collar workers. And so just from an impact standpoint, that's more people to impact. And the work that we have to do, for instance, with technology and all the tools that we have, is to introduce solutions that can even the pie, that can allow the most people, 80% of the hardworking people who prop up our economy, to be able to enjoy more reward for the work that they do and live a better life.
Yeah, because again, when you look at something like automation, which has been quite a big conversation within different industries, when you look at manufacturing particularly, it's one of those areas that automation has become one of the reasons that we're seeing a lot of jobs being shed. So looking at those at the bottom of the pyramid, these are some of the jobs that they would manually do, but then they're being phased out. What is the alternative for them? So
training, one can't underestimate the importance of training and giving people the relevant skills to be able to work in the modern world. And that has been done before. The fact that people are able to work in the mechanical age, in the factories of today, 100 years ago, they couldn't do that. Now they can, because they have been trained to be able to do that. And in the world that's going to be dominated by technology and data, it's just going to be different skills, but we'll still need people to do the work. And there are things that artificial intelligence can't take away. So there will be, jobs will change, but if we're leading our people well, people will have jobs. It will just be different jobs than the jobs they did 10 years ago.
Okay, because it's a good thing that you talk about the issue of skills, because for the longest time we've had about a skill gap, a skill mismatch, where we have a lot of graduates that are still unemployed.
Yes.
So what is the problem with that? And looking forward, what needs to happen to make sure that the graduates that are coming out of our universities are then ready for the market?
Interesting. We usually call it in a cliche way of reducing the distance between the town and the gown. So universities are training people, and the market has specific needs that the market has. And so the work that we need to do, and all stakeholders have to do this work, from companies like ourselves, technology companies like ourselves, from governments to institutions, is to make sure that that distance between what people need to work in the town is already sort of given to them when they're in school. So curriculums have to change, certainly have to change. With the pace of which technology is changing, curriculums certainly have to change, and there are a lot of initiatives already at work, modernizing curriculums to ensure that people are skilled to do the work that they need to do when they graduate.
So, Dr., when you look at, let's say, 10 years back and where we are today, when you look at the status of blue-collar workers, has it improved or has it diminished? Because, again, the cost of living has been rising.
Yes. Unfortunately, the answer is that's diminished. The economy has been hardest in most parts of Africa in the last 3 to 4 years. Since the pandemic was a real shock, and we're still reeling from the impact of that across the continent. And of course, that was followed by unrest in parts of the world that has also affected the price of commodities that come out of Africa. So, like I mentioned earlier, the people at the base of the pyramid have felt the brunt of those challenges most, unfortunately. And so to specific on your question, yes, things have worsened, unfortunately, for all Africans, especially for those at the base of the pyramid.
Because again, there's the question of wages. When you look at some of these wages, those at the bottom of the pyramid continue to make either what they used to make 10 years ago, if not lower than that.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen? Because again, the casual laborer that we have in 2023 is not the same one that we had in 2000.
Yes.
In terms of the skills that they have now.
Yes.
But yet that salary or that wage is still lower.
Yes. So that's interesting. The question is, this is one of the things that we're focused on. These are one of the things that we're spending a lot of time doing across the continent. Mm-hmm. First of all is that, do we even have real data? Do we even really know what's going on? Do we actually have anybody focusing on that category of the labor force?
Yeah.
And trying to sort of figure out with real data how to improve the quality of lives for the most hardworking Africans. And what we do, for instance, our mission statement is to help hardworking Africans enjoy a better life. And from that, the embedded financing side of our work. And so this is what we spend all our time doing, and I'm happy to talk to you about it a lot today.
All right, so let's talk about the role of technology in then bridging that distance. What can technology do, and what are some of the things that you're currently doing to harness technology in terms of bridging that distance? So
I'll start by just talking about what we do. Mm-hmm. And the contributions we make. There's a lot of stuff that technology can do, but we're really very vast at what we do and our contribution to that space. And hopefully I'll talk a bit about what other people can also do with technology.
Okay.
But in terms of what we do, Seamless HR is an end-to-end HR and payroll software company. And we're the leading HR and payroll software company in the continent. And that means that we help employers manage everything from hire to retire. So from recruitment to onboarding to HR records, to performance management, time and attendance, leave management, all the way to exit. And we are currently now in a bunch of countries across the continent. We're focused more east, west, and south. So we have activity, for instance, in Nigeria, in Ghana. We have activity in Kenya, which is our hub for East Africa, from which we're working in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ethiopia coming on stream very soon. And some work we also do in Botswana. So we have about 1,000 plus businesses that now use our services to manage all of their human resource functions. And that gives us a lot of data and a lot of insight that helps us work with those organizations to improve the quality of work that happen in those organizations. Yeah. And recently, we've now sort of like focused on, if you're sitting on all this payroll, for instance, we have a target to process at least 20 million salaries over the next few years. And if you're sitting on all that salary, one of the programming earlier, the gentleman was talking about open banking. In 2023, when there's open banking, the challenge we ask ourselves is, what will a technology company that has 20 million salaries through their pipe do with all that data, all that access in a world where there's open banking? And the way we see it, it's almost a debt we owe to the customers that we work with to leverage technology to the maximum to garnish salaries. Because if you have 20 million salaries, that's a responsibility. You can improve the quality of the lives of those people with technology. Yeah. And so we've risen to that responsibility, and we've had partners who've joined us, which we'll talk about as well, on that journey to be able to help most hardworking Africans do more with their salaries and enjoy a better life.
All right, so when you talk about HR, and of course there's the question of investment. I mean, when you look at every workforce, investment and the amounts of money that have to be channeled. If it's a new job group that you have to create, that means more money. So how are you using technology then to inform some of these decisions?
Yes, very, very good question. And one of the things technology helps us do is to be able to measure productivity. Is to be able to help employers understand where's the productivity coming from in your organization, who are the most productive people, how can we reward people for their contribution to production. So for instance, we've got a time and attendance model that helps you track how many hours people are actually putting into work. We're able to track how much production people are giving. We have a performance management system that allows us to measure performance and to be able to then link payroll and reward systems to the most high-performing people in the organization, and to, for instance, eliminate ghost workers, for instance, because that's a major area of productivity loss or loss of investment and cash. Because ghosts are earning money, and so technology helps eliminate those kind of things.
All right, now when you look at within the Kenyan context, the big conversation around employment is the question of performance contracting. So how then do we use technology to measure some of these KPIs?
So it's really, this a story I normally share is Amazon has 1.6 million employees. How do you run a company with 1.6 million people without technology? And part of our mission is how can we build a technology that will help Africa to have its own Amazons in 10 years' time? There's no way to build healthy institutions in 2023 without technology. Technology actually enables us, helps us. And so when you talk about productivity, you either want to use pen and paper or use technology. And it's obvious that technology would help better to track productivity. We do have the most robust performance management system in the continent that actually helps measure KPIs from the creation all the way to the tracking, connect that to reward systems, to payroll. So all of that, technology is actually what helps us do that. And for the first time in 400 years, maybe, Africans are now able to build their own technology. And we are Africans, we're very proud that we now have the tools and the factors of production where we can now build our own technology and build it to work for our own problems. And that's part of the advantage we bring to the table, being African company, building for Africans.
All right, and I'm sure you've worked with so many companies, but again, what are some of the challenges that you have seen that with these companies that maybe has made it hard for them to onboard technology or not maximize the technology they already have?
I mean, the way we look at it is sort of like it's a race. You have a starting point and it just gets better as you go forward. Historically, African companies have not even had a choice in the technology that they work with, because this technology is built in Europe and America, and it's not appropriate for the needs that African employers have. And usually also very priced. The old price of like something is built in America and Europe is priced by those markets in hard currencies that makes it very unaffordable for most businesses in Africa who are trading in local currencies and with local realities. So the difference that we make is that, one, we are building for the continent. So in the solutions that we're building, they actually work for our customers because the customers build those solutions. The customers give feedback. And all of this is built based on the feedback of our customers. And then it's priced locally, it's priced affordably for the local market to be able to use the systems that we've built. And that has made a significant difference in adoption. So we're seeing more companies now being able to use technology. 7 out of every 10 businesses that use Seamless HR have never used a technology system before. And I'm talking large enterprises across Africa. 7 out of 10 of them have never used a technology system before to manage end-to-end of their human resources.
All right, so Dr. I know we are fast running out of time, but what I want to know from where you sit as a company, what is the end goal for some of these solutions that you're currently building?
So I would just use the time to talk about what we launched this week with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is Earned Wage Access product. And the Earned Wage Access product is a product that helps the base of the pyramid, blue-collar workers, everybody really, but with a lot of focus on blue-collar workers, to have access to the money that they have earned. So imagine that today is the 13th of the month, and someone needs money to pay for a drug for their kid, is in the hospital. And, when I worked as a doctor, I experienced that real time where you can get 20 Kenyan shillings, for instance, to buy medicine to save the life of a child, and that child will die if the doctor won't, help you pay for that drug. And so people have earned this money, and they should be able to have access to it. So what our technology does is on the 13th of the month, you can go to the app and say, how much have I earned? If I earn 30,000 Kenyan shillings in a month, for instance, that means I've earned 13,000 by the 13th of the month. And I can cash that money, and then in 5 days' time, I can cash another 5,000 Kenyan shillings I've earned. And so the system helps automate all of that, partnering with the employer. At the end of the month, we balance the accounts, and the employer, when the employer pays salaries. And this is not a loan. The person is just having access to the money that they have earned.
All right, so let's talk about eligibility for some of these solutions.
Yes.
What do you look at before saying, okay, we can come into your company or your institution and then onboard some of our technology?
So first, for the institution side of things, we're looking for companies that need technology, that have realized the need for technology, because it's a collaboration. You can't force a solution on an institution, and there are still institutions that are coming to that point. So we're looking for companies that have interest in doing this. Usually we focus on companies between 50 and 25,000 employees. So our biggest customers have about 25,000 employees, but we're able to help companies with smaller numbers. On the employee side, what is critical for us is that we're managing salaries and payroll, so that if we have insight to payroll data, we can then tell this is how much this person is earning, and then collaborating with their company, the software is able to calibrate standards of how much of their salary do you want them to have access to. Like I said, it is not a loan. The product we just launched is not a loan. It's access to earned wages, giving you access to money you've already earned. And so the criteria for us is we are paying salaries for your company, then we can help your employees to have access to money they've earned.
All right, Dr. Thank you so much for making time and joining us for this conversation. And of course, that's how we want to wrap up this edition of Business Today. Of course, a lot more will be coming on later on in our subsequent bulletins. We'll be looking at the new fuel prices for the month of August all the way to September, mid-September 14th. My name is Jimmy Mbogo. Mbivya KTN is up next.